Angry Mad Scott, the ex-Hyperian, and I'm here to tell you why I'm not Hyperian anymore and want nothing to do with it. So here goes. How long was I involved? Well, too bloody long. Let's be honest, too long. But technically it was about 3.5 years, I would say.
Hello, my name is Gina. I have lent portions of my identity to Hyperianism for a little bit over 5 years. And I've decided that I'm just going to refer to that as my flop era from here on out.
My name is Christina, and I was Hyperian for 5.5 years, although it wasn't called that back then. It started when I read book 0 in February of 2017, and there was a letter in the book that directed me to a website called the Order of One. Through this website, I went through trial, which some of you who've been around for a while might remember. And after 6 months, Corey invited me to join the Order, which I suppose you can think of as their inner circle.
What drew me to it was purely because as soon as I saw Morgue on Instagram, which was in about 2018, I instantly recognised the PI material. He was talking about the nature of reality, being mathematical, etc. And I was like, oh, that's the PI's work. I know that. So that's what drew me to it.
What drew me to Hyperianism? Back in 2017, I saw an ad on Facebook for Morgue, and he was discussing the eternal nature of mind. That was a concept and a subject that I was very, very much into at the time. So I immediately made sure to start catching his live streams, which were 3 a.m. on Instagram. So that was also the only way you could get his book at that time, was to stay up until 3 a.m. and then wait for this little tiny 1 hour window so that you could get this information that you just weren't going to find anywhere else. Yeah.
What drew me to Hyperianism was the section of book 0 called The Dark Secret, which covered topics like the infinite and eternal mind, deconstructing reality, and energy and matter. Then I started watching Corey's videos, and that expanded on these topics. Those videos are very different from the videos they've been creating lately and the live streams they've done in the past few years.
What made me get involved? The same thing. I thought he had the backing of the PI. I thought he was the vehicle that we're using to get the information out there. And although I didn't particularly like him or his vibe or aesthetic or whatever, it was a bit dark and depressing for me. I didn't think it was maybe the best way to do things. But I was like, oh well, if this is, you know, what they've sanctioned to get the information out there, then I'll back it up, I'll support it. So that's what made me get involved.
What made me get involved in Hyperianism? The concept of positive liberty and meritocracy, the tenets of meritocracy, uniting the working class. Of course, the ontological mathematics at the heart of it. But what really, really drove me was the drive for equality for every human on Earth, regardless of their gender, their sex preferences, who they're born to, just based on your merit. So yeah, that was initially what made me get involved.
What made me get involved in Hyperianism was the math. Corey reached out to me while I was still in trial and asked me if I would be interested in helping with a math project. We decided to create a video series called Introduction to Hyperian Mathematics. We had a lot of conversations about it, and we decided that they would film me teaching the derivation of the Fourier transform and inverse Fourier transform. And I was really excited to use my teaching experience to participate in this project. but we only ever got about 10 episodes out before the project was abandoned. They're still on an old Hyperianism YouTube channel somewhere, but we never really got past the trigonometric prerequisites.
What red flags were there? Well, I think we've established that the whole bloody thing is one massive red flag at this moment. But for me in particular, the kind of hierarchy that was going on within Hyperianism, you know, there was definitely some people at the top who you couldn't question, couldn't criticise, couldn't say anything about. If you did, you were blocked, unfriended, chucked to a groups, all that good stuff. That pissed me off. That was a red flag. Another one which has been mentioned, but I think it's worth reiterating because it is a pretty significant red flag, is the fact that there was no real movement happening within this so-called movement. It was completely static and nothing was actually being done. And, you know, the whole coronavirus and COVID was a very convenient excuse to not have meetups, not do anything concrete in the 3D. But now that that's passed and there's still nothing happening, there's no excuse anymore. And I asked them this 3 times last week, and on Facebook through my fake account, I asked them 3 times, you know, you keep talking about new Terra. What plans have you got to bring this new Earth, this new Terra, into actual 3D reality? And I could see him reading it 3 times and I ignored it 3 times. Maybe because I didn't send a super chat, maybe because I didn't pay to ask that question, but I think it just made him uncomfortable, you know. So that was another red flag, just the lack of movement, the lack of anything actually really happening in the 3D reality. And sometimes when you did offer suggestions or solutions to things, you were just shot down. I remember suggesting when I was in the outer circle for a couple of months, I was like, I think we should all go to our local schools and universities and target, you know, political students, history students, people that science students, people that we think would be amenable to this information. Like, if we all done that in our local area, we might be able to really, you know, make an impact with people that are already thinking that way. And a couple of people liked it and were like, yeah, that's a good idea, but there was nothing. And I thought that was a brilliant idea, you know. I was like, why aren't we doing this already? But nothing like that has ever been suggested, and there was just generally nothing being done. So that was another massive red flag. And the third was definitely the direction that his videos were going. The content was going right downhill. It was becoming all about him, becoming really obscure subjects like, you know, what does the crown and the Statue of Liberty really symbolise? What does this Masonic text really say about Jesus? You know, and then the whole, was Jesus actually Lucifer? Was Lucifer actually God? Was it like all these obscure subjects that either vaguely interesting, but they don't really have anything to do with Illuminism or progressing as a movement for the working class, you know. And I just didn't see the relevance. Plus the fact that the way he monetizes his YouTube channel to the absolute max. Like, millions of people have YouTube channels, and, you know, a lot will have a Patreon for extra videos and stuff. But I have never, ever, ever watched another YouTube creator that does lives and has, you know, has so many ways of collecting money in one stream. You know, super chats, stars, loyalty badges, going up to different tiers. Like, it's insane. And it's like he's literally sitting there like a flipping like a slot machine in Las Vegas, just collecting money for all these people that are addicted to him and that keep flinging money at him, hoping that they're going to get a 777 and all their fruits in a row so that he'll give them a shout out, change the colour, woo, put a blue background on, or write their name on the board, you know. It's like, if your life is so sad and empty that getting a shout out or a validation for that prick is the highlight of your week, you really need to evaluate what you're doing with your life. You know what I mean? The guy is doing nothing but sitting there collecting money. And I would like to address what Uriel said, his ex, in her statement, saying, oh, he's not really like that, he's not about money. Aye, back then, he wasn't. He was altruistic back then, he had good intentions back then. The PI approved of them back then, when you were shagging him, but not since. He has completely morphed into this totally narcissistic character, in love with himself, in love with his own reflection, and all he cares about now is collecting as much money as possible, and that's it, you know. His videos are shit, they're repetitive, you don't learn anything new, there's no focus on any movement, and he focuses on the most trivial stuff, you know, all the minority groups, not the 99%, not the working class. Yeah, it's pathetic. So that was a few red flags there.
Red flags. A quote I heard on the internet the other day from a therapist, which I believe she got from a cartoon, is when you're wearing rose-colored glasses, all of the red flags look just like flags. And it is quite appropriate in this case. I just wanted to see the good. We know that we have to look at the bad as well. So the final set of red flags, that final set came on July 26 when I met with Susan Mitchell to discuss duties that I would be assisting, be taking over and handling on for the Hyperian source. So starting out, I would be mainly working in the background doing WordPress, maintenance and keeping up with their site, some content marketing, content repurposing, social media strategy for their Instagram, including making that content for it. Mostly, you know, repurposing. We won't go into too much detail on that. And as well as eventually they wanted me to, when I got my own equipment, be on their streams. And so also throughout the discussion, Susan revealed, well, eventually we would like to pay you, of course, for all of this, but the channel doesn't make very much, so, you know, don't expect too much. And I wasn't too bothered by that, because at that time I thought that this was my only avenue to assist and spread Aunt Math and spread meritocracy, which also, by the way, when I said the word meritocracy, Susan Mitchell's like, we're using the word teleocracy now. So yeah, it was just like, what? Okay. I guess you can use that word. It's kind of strange, but anyway, I get off the line, and it hit me that Morgue was not providing for his team of marketers, because Morgue is a social media influencer. Typically, the people doing these tasks for him, marketing his content, driving people to the website to buy merchandise and whatnot, typically you would pay those people something for their time, not just promising them a new world order and pocketing the money. So it was at that time I found out how pathetically little Morgue contributed as a leader to people that I thought were, you know, in the inner circle type people. So it was a big fucking eye opener.
There were a lot of red flags that I've been ignoring over the years that I've buried in my subconscious. And I started pulling them out one by one while I was reading the new Sinclair book, and it was painful. Hyperianism had become such a huge part of my identity that I didn't want to think about them, but I'd like to share two of them. The first red flag was that we suddenly stopped having order meetings. They were held on Monday nights, but once Corey started live streaming on Mondays, they said they were too busy, so we no longer had weekly order meetings. But Susan and Corey were meeting privately. The next red flag was about the Aunt Math series. I wrote the first few scripts and gave them to Susan to edit, and then I recorded the audio. When I gave her the fourth script, she told me, "Oh, we're not doing it on that." She had already written it. She took over the writing, and I just did the audio. I came to her repeatedly to tell her how uncomfortable it made me that we were deceiving people about me being the one teaching it. I was reading the comments on those videos, and it was obvious that people thought I was writing the scripts. But over and over again, she kept telling me, "Oh, don't worry about it, it's fine, it's fine." But it wasn't fine, and it worried me all the time, but I kept my mouth shut.
How did I discover the original material, source material by Mike Hockney? Well, that was back in early 2013. I had been having a lot of spontaneous astral projection experiences. It was happening every single night to me for months on end, which, you know, many people can spend years trying to astral project and they don't manage it once. This was happening to me. I was being blasted into space and all sorts, and it was mental. And it was obviously like a concern. I was like, what is happening here? Why is this happening to me? I'm not even trying. And so I just wanted to research about it, and I seen one of the articles on, when I done a Google search, I went far back. Oh, you never look at the first couple of pages. I think I went to page 9 because that's my favourite number, and one of their articles came up, and within 5 minutes of reading it, I knew I had stumbled across something totally life-changing, and it just blew my mind. I could not stop reading the whole site. I think I read it in 10 days. I had about 4 totally sleepless. That's all I done. I just read the whole site until it was finished. And my life's never been the same since, in a good way. So that's how I discovered the source material.
How did I discover the source material written by Mike Hockney? It didn't take long. Many in the community were posting quotes from the God Game series, and myself, as an avid lifelong reader, it didn't take me too long to get through Morgue's tiny little books. So once I found out there were more books, there was more information to consume, naturally I was quite excited to find that, and began my journey at that time. So I would say maybe 6 or 7 months into being exposed to Hyperianism, so about mid-2018 or so. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I did, because it made me realize that Hyperianism was just a tiny introduction to ontological mathematics, and a very, very tiny introduction to a meritocratic system. So there you have it.
While I was preparing for the Intro to Hyperian Mathematics series, Corey told me there was a book they wanted me to read called The God Game by Mike Hockney. And as soon as I started reading about what existence is, which is at the very beginning of the book, it all seemed so obvious, and I really did feel like I was remembering. I was sitting on my bed, leaning over my iPad where I was reading it from, and I kept having to wipe my tears off the iPad. The experience was that intense.
what made me leave? Well, I'd already energetically left about this time a year ago, because I could see things just weren't right, and I thought the PI cannot possibly approve of this. And they'd hinted in a few of their past books that they weren't happy with certain stuff, but they'd never outright, denounced Morgue completely. So I was just waiting for that, like quite a few people that were acquainted with the AC site and the PI's work beforehand, and who considered themselves Illuminists before Morgue even appeared in the scene. We were just waiting for the PI to bring out a really hard-hitting book to absolutely trash him to pieces, and it's happened. And as soon as it happened, that's why it was so easy for so many of us to instantly proclaim ourselves Illuminists and put up the red banners, because that's what we were waiting on. I know it must look like we just all jumped ship just because the PI told us to, but that wasn't the case at all. A lot of us had already at least energetically left, and were just watching and waiting to see what the PI would say about the whole situation. That was certainly the case with me. I'd already taken Hyperian out my bio way back at the beginning of the year. I'd unsubscribed to Morgue at the same time. I'd already left. So that's why I left. I was just waiting for the PI to confirm that what I was thinking and feeling was accurate, and I wasn't the only one thinking and feeling that.
What finally led me to leave Hyperianism? Well, you recall I said I was being recruited to work on the Hyperian source at the time that the book Without the Mob came out. So when it came out, I began getting messages from many Hyperians who were in their feelings. We'll just put it that way. One set of those messages were very passive aggressive, very... I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's from one of the mods that's there, and it was actually his message. He gave me a little tiny paragraph snippet I needed from the book to go, oh, that's what's going on, because I was being, messages all directions coming at me, and I'm just like, oh my god, why are my friends like freaking out all of a sudden? Because I hadn't had a chance to dig into the material. So yeah, it was kind of crazy, but mostly it's just that I will not enable a plagiarist. I won't enable somebody who would psychopathically take this material and use it for their own gain. That's not what I'm here for. It's not a part of my purpose, sorry.
There are many reasons I left Hyperianism, and I'd like to share a few. First of all, once the order meeting stopped, we were out of the loop. I thought Corey was still working with the PI, but it turns out they hadn't spoken for almost 2 years, and Corey didn't tell us this until after they saw the AC's Bastille Day post. They shouldn't have withheld that from us. Here's another reason I left. This booklet was published in 2019, and I'd like to read a few quotes from it. We will annihilate the old systems, destroy the old rulers. Hyperians will remake the world and save it from destruction. We will abolish the rich elite. Since the publication of this document, how many videos and live streams have you seen that are specifically about these topics? These are the things that I want to focus on, which I don't see Corey focused on. What happened? What changed? David Sinclair's new book, Without the Mob, There Is No Circus, reminded me of who I am and what I stand for. I'm leaving Hyperianism to fight for the working class, the proletariat. I'm leaving to bring down the old world order. And finally, I felt like I was wasting my time modding and working for the Hyperian source. For the last 20 months, I've been fighting to produce more advanced Aunt Math to no avail. So now that I won't be volunteering so much of my free time to modding and the Hyperian source, I'm leaving Hyperianism to dedicate my time to continue studying ontological mathematics and finding ways to produce my own content.
How much money did I spend? Fortunately, not too much. I didn't waste too much money. I calculated it was probably just about £200 max, mainly through Patreon. I only downloaded one of his books, The Metaphorical Suicide. That was shit. You know, I can understand if you are just reading Morgue's books and you've not read anything but the PI first, then you might think, yeah, he's pretty intelligent, he's a pretty good author. But if you've already read the PI's works first, and then you read Morgue stuff, I mean, the contrast is huge. There's no comparison, really. Morgue is not anywhere near the caliber of the PI.
How much money did I spend on Hyperianism? Over a 5-year period, let's say, including Patreon and books, and I bought a shirt and I bought a hoodie, which I don't really count that as a waste. Those are things that I would need anyway. I need clothing to cover my body, and I need books to nourish my mind. I probably spent a couple $100. I didn't really do too many super chats. I thought those were kind of strange. A friend recently pointed out that, you know how Morgue spends an hour in the beginning of his live streams getting likes to feed the algorithm, and then he's getting all these super chats. It's like passing around that time where they pass around the collection plate in church. I never actually went to church and had to experience that. I'm just aware of it. But yeah, if that relates to you, then take note. That first hour, Morgue's passing around that collection plate and you're lining his bank account, and he is not supporting his support crew.
I didn't keep track of how much money I spent on Hyperianism. I was on Corey's Patreon. I paid to join the YouTube channel for a while. I bought books, t-shirts, pins, and a poster. So I'd estimate hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I also volunteered countless hours of my time these past 5 years. And it surprised me to find out that some people didn't realize that Corey wasn't paying the moderators.
What would I say to Hyperians? It feels a bit pointless trying to talk to the ones that are left, because it's just the dregs, it's just the absolute die-hard hangers-on, the feeling types that can see no wrong in Morgue. So, as well as reiterating what's been said before about get your emotions out the way, look at the situation completely logically, rationally, read the source material, read the PI's material, read the God series, get your emotions out. Yes, I agree with all that. But I would also say, just look at the man, forget about Hyperianism and the PI. Just look at the man, Morgue, Corey, the way he treats people. Because the way that he's treated Wrath alone is despicable and unforgivable to me. It had me in tears. Like Wrath said, there was no one more dedicated to Hyperianism than him. He was more dedicated than Morgue from day one, honestly. And, you know, the amount of 5 years of the absolute utmost loyalty, dedication, time, love. Yeah, love, a concept Corey knows nothing about. That guy gave everything, and what did he get in return? For one, I didn't know this until I heard his video the other day. He was at the top tier of Patreon for years and didn't even get his signed sword. He's paid the equivalent for about 1,000 swords by now, and he's not even had one. And when he asked why, oh, it went missing in the post. How could a bloody sword go missing in the post? Seriously? Like, he didn't send it. So that's the type of person Corey is. He's not a man of his word, he's a thief. He's a liar. He didn't give what he was supposed to give. He's just one of the most despicable people I've ever come across. He has got no moral compass. He doesn't care. He's a user. He's like just a big black hole that just sucks everything out of people and gives fuck all back. But the way he's treated Wrath in particular was so terrible. Like laughing down the phone to him when Wrath phoned to question the situation, and he was clearly distressed, and he just laughed. That's the type of person he is. That's the type of man he is. I wouldn't call him a man. I mean, he's non-binary, so he's not a man. He's a single-celled amoeba to me. He's a piece of protoplasm. He's a piece of shit. He's nothing. And to treat people as somebody who you will not hear anybody say a bad word about Wrath. That guy is so genuine, so amazing. Everybody loves him. No one's got a bad word to say about him. You'll hear plenty of people say plenty of bad words about Corey though, because he's not an amazing, genuine person. He is a liar, a user, a plagiarist, a con man, a trickster. And what he's done is just, it's honestly unforgivable. So I would look at Corey the man, forget both sides, just look at his actions, the way he treats people, what he done to Rowan and Christina, phoning the police and FBI, all that shit. It's deplorable what he's done, and that's how you should judge him. Just as a person. Is he a decent character? Is he a good man? A good person? And if you still think he is after what he's done and how he's treated certain people, honestly, fuck you. Your moral compass is as non-existent as his. If that's the case, if you really think he's a decent guy and you're going to keep supporting him. And this pressure is not going to stop until that disgusting man and his cult are gone. So get used to it. And finally, I want to take this opportunity to thank the PI for, one, just releasing and giving us this amazing information and knowledge, and two, to apologise on Corey's behalf and all of our behalf, because we've all had a hand in this. No one is guilt-free in this situation. We've all been guilty to some degree, and I'm ashamed of my part in it. But I want to thank the PI for still having faith that some of us Illuminists, do really appreciate their work, are truly grateful for it, and would never dream in a million years of doing what that cunt's done. So thank you for still having faith in some of us, and I hope we can do you proud from this moment onwards and never ever bring such shame to your name again. So yeah, that's all I want to say. I am Jooly, I am Illuminist, I am definitely not Hyperian. Thank you for listening.
What would I say to any remaining Hyperians? I would say I know that many of you have expressed that you're feeling bullied, that maybe you're feeling abandoned and you're feeling hurt by those of us longtime Hyperians that have left. The reason we left is because we are not willing to enable the suppression of human enlightenment, which is what happens when you stay with Hyperianism. Because Morgue no longer has the the permission to speak on Aunt Math, you will begin to see that he's only speaking on things that are in the public domain. So things like Masonic texts, which are deeply rooted in misogyny. Yeah, just really esoteric old things. He's no longer going to be able to speak on ontological mathematics because of the plagiarism. And they, you know, as the copyright holders, you can revoke somebody's permission to use your material, which it sounds as though that is clearly what has happened. At this point, we can't deny that. Morgue's permission to use ontological mathematics has been revoked, and at this point he's saying, oh, don't pay attention to them, they just want attention. You know, when you read a narcissist's accusations, if you read them very carefully, you will actually see it's a signed confession. Morgue needs your attention. He needs it to fill his bank account. He does not run a meritocratic order, even within his own domain of Hyperianism. He keeps you there during the live stream in trauma bond through pity that he has experienced RTS. Have you experienced RTS? I've experienced RTS. Hey, let's get some more likes. Let's get some more super chats. Oh, thank you so much. I'm just so comfortable. So what you're experiencing is a cycle of trauma bonding with him. And as long as you stay there, you are enabling his behavior. Those of us that left, no more. We're not enabling his behavior. And we're making damn well sure, we're making sure that there is a trail so that others know this is not the way. If you're only learning Aunt Math from Morgue, you're holding yourself back because you're being cut off from the ontological mathematics texts by the source writers. You're willingly choosing to subjugate yourself to someone who would willingly suppress this information from being sent out into the world because he wants to make a pretty penny from it. He wants to swindle people as a social media influencer, as a guru. I know it hurts to realize you've been swindled. I know, okay? It hurts. But there comes a time where you have to make the adult choice, realize that not everything in life is going to give you a color change in the background or emojis in the chat, and do the right thing and turn your back on Hyperianism. If you feel that leaving the community will cause trauma for you, I definitely encourage you to seek trauma-informed care. There are free RTS resources out there. A website off the top of my head is journeyfree.org. Anybody who knows any other RTS resources, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And yeah, I wish you guys the best, but stop trying to say you know Aunt Math if all you know is from Morgue's tiny little dissertation on what he learned from the PI, from the Armageddon conspiracy writers. Okay? Thanks.
To any Hyperians watching this, I want to share something with you. Early on in my time as an order member, sometime in 2018, I think, I remember having some questions about something that was going on, but I was uncomfortable asking it at one of our weekly order meetings. So I went to a higher ranking order member and asked them privately, but they wouldn't give me an answer. Instead, they said, "Christina, we don't tell you everything." So to the Hyperians watching this, I want you to think about that. If they're hiding things from the order members, what are they hiding from you? Please strip away any biases you may have and read Sinclair's new book carefully and objectively. Corey always talks about using reason and logic. Now is the time to use them.